It's a pleasure to have Phillip Warrick on tonight. He is a very dear friend of ours. We've known him for what, 4 or 5 years, Phillip?
Yeah, about 3 years, I think. So
3 years, that's right. It seems. And he's an investor. He's been investing for over 20 years.
Which he doesn't look old enough to be doing all that, but and having grandkids and such. But anyway, we'll give him that.
And he lives in Houston, Texas, and he's also a coach. He gives back. He's a great person, and he has a wonderful singing voice. Maybe he'll sing a few bars for us.
Not tonight.
And the thing, once we had met Phillip, and one of the things that struck us, he's very humble. You would not know that he has like flipped millions of houses and does short-term rentals and does all kinds of stuff, because he'll never brag about it, but he does a lot of different strategies, which is what we try to teach here on the academy. Is, for every house there's a different strategy. He's very versed in short-term rentals. I think he's going to talk a little bit about that tonight, but he can also flip, he can own or finance, he can rent. So he pretty much does it all. And just very honored to have you here to teach the folks here some little strategies that you might have, and any tidbits, because anything that you talk about is a gold nugget. So we'll turn it over to you, Phillip, and if you have slides, cool. If not, just talk. However you want to run your show.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. I do have some slides that I'll pull up here in just a second. And like you guys said, it's been an honor even getting to know you guys over the past couple of years and a half through the same networks that we're involved in. And, I've done everything over the past 23 years. I started young, as she said. We're grandparents already, right? So we got married young, started having kids young, and then our kid started having kids young. But here we are, 23 years experience, full-time real estate entrepreneur since December of 2003. So we've done everything from the buy, fix, and flip to buy and hold, wholesale deals, subject tos, lease options, short sales, like you name it, we've done it. And we're what we like to call a full cycle real estate entrepreneur, going through the different cycles. But our primary focus is in the single family space. Have not delved into the multifamily yet, but we love what we do in the single family. And we've gone through a lot of phases. So without further ado, let me pull up this slide presentation, and I'm probably the opposite. I'm probably more comfortable without one and kind of doing like Q&A, but maybe we'll just go through these and then open up for questions and stuff like that at the end. But what I want to talk about tonight is the real estate investing with an Airbnb strategy. Okay. And, I am a full-time real estate entrepreneur, real estate investor, and flipper. I like to buy, fix, and hold houses for a while before selling them, and utilizing the Airbnb model kind of as our holding method right now is what we've really landed on, and we've fallen in love with it. I got really, really involved in the Airbnb space back in November of 2017. And again, this is just kind of a little information about me, full-time real estate investor. Y'all can see my screen, right?
Yes.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me do this in a slide presentation. Okay, is that better? Oh wow, so I have it actually in bullet points. 20 years experience, real estate entrepreneur. Let me pull this window's in the way. So anyway, and then I'm also a #1 Amazon best-selling author, a co-authored book called Think Big, and I'll share you guys a link with that at the end of the call, so that way you can get a free copy of that as well. So that's that. Sorry about that. I'm kind of getting stuck in this screen here. Play. And then also do coaching, right? I am a certified high performance coach through another from Brendan Burchard, but mainly my focus right now is in real estate coaching and doing real estate deals. And like Jane said, I'm a very humble person. I haven't been the type of guy that brags about what I do. I did get the benefit of sharing the stage with Jane and Sharon at the Real Estate Masters in Dallas a few months ago in front of 700 real estate masters. But real estate has given me the opportunity to meet amazing people. And we all know that, who we surround ourselves with is who we become, and your network equals your net worth, right? And so real estate has given me these opportunities to meet such amazing people. JT Fox is one of our coaches. I've got Brendan Burchard here in my corner here as a certified high performance coach. We've all probably seen or met or seen Dean Graziosi, and then, you know, George Ross, and then Kyle Wilson is the guy that we did the co-author book Think Big with. We got Hugh Hilton and Pauly, and then just amazing people that we've been able to grow and do business with over the years through that network and that organization. But what I want to talk about is in terms of real estate. And, you know, have you ever had the following challenges, right? One would be growing your single family rental portfolio, dealing with long-term tenants and the problems that come with long-term tenants, vacancy costs, low cash flow, and surprise maintenance issues. And I think that was touched on just a minute ago. You know, like if you think about growing your rental portfolio, a lot of times what we do is we have a goal, like, hey, what's the goal of how much money I want to make residually or passive per month through my real estate investments? And as we know, with the real estate single family home, we might be lucky to cash flow $100 or $200 a month, right, per property. And if we're trying to cover a $10,000 per month cost of living, it's going to take a lot of doors to get to that at a couple $100 a month. And then the other problem that you have is tenants that don't take care of your property, and you have to re-renovate the house after they move out every single year or every time their lease expires. I always say that the biggest expense that we have as real estate investors or real estate flippers is vacancy costs, right? A house sitting there empty, not bringing in any income. Or if you buy, fix, and flip, the time from getting the house renovated until the house is sold, you have those holding costs and vacancy costs, the low cash flow from that, and then the surprise maintenance issues. I used to say, you know, we're one phone call away from a $5,000 problem or a $7,500 air conditioner replacement. And if you don't have a lot of cash flow, that can be eaten up literally by one maintenance call, you know? So this is why I'm kind of leaning on the Airbnb strategy. And I'll share with you a little bit about my story of struggle. And so what I've always envisioned was having a pipeline of houses, right? Buying single family homes, renovating them, putting rent to own tenant buyers in them, and holding that property as a rental for a year or 2 years. Meanwhile, helping that tenant buyer to eventually purchase the property from us, right? So this would give us a down payment from the tenant buyer instead of first and last month's rent. It would give us monthly cash flow. And then once we help them buy the house, that would give us our back end profit. So my goal starting out was to get to where I have a tenant buyer cashing me out every week or every month down the road, right? And so we went hard. We were buying houses. It got to the point once we got coaching and we had mentors that we were literally buying a house a week to fill this pipeline. And as we all know, what happened in 2008, the market crashed. So we had 57 houses on the books in 2008 when the market crashed in different positions in this strategy that we had. And what happened was, instead of these tenant buyers getting their credit fixed up, we started getting houses back, right? And we're getting houses back instead of them purchasing them. And what happened was, after they'd lived there for a few years, you know, this is a house that we had bought. We put a tenant buyer in there. They lived there a few years. We had to evict them. And this is the condition of the property after we had already done a full renovation. They lived there for a few years, totally trashed the house. We had to literally renovate the house again. And so that strategy to me was like not working, right? And a lot of real estate gurus will teach, oh, well, hey, when you do a rent to own, if the buyer doesn't buy the house, well, you get to do it again. You get a new deposit. You get to raise the price. You get to do all those things. And it all sounds great in theory until you're in it in real life, right? And this is what the house looks like when you get it back. So what we've done is we've kind of flipped the script, right? We've started doing fully furnished Airbnbs. And what this allows us to do, it allows us to fully renovate these properties. And this is the house after they moved out. We renovated it again. We fully furnished it, got it completely furnished. And then we put it on Airbnb as a rental property. And then at the same time that we have it on Airbnb, we actually listed it for sale, because now we've already owned this house for several years. And my strategy has always been to hold for a few years before we flip that property. And then we put it on Airbnb, generate income. So the whole time the house is listed for sale, it's also listed on Airbnb, generating income until we close and fund on that. And then a lot of times what happens is when we end up having a buyer, the buyer will, have a 30 or 45-day close, we're still generating income during that from contract to closing. And then we'll do like a simple two-day temporary lease after closing for us to shut it all down and move out and get that property over to the new buyers. And so that's kind of the strategy that we're doing now. And then we're also working with other people, with students, and helping them kind of run that same model. And so I wanted to share kind of a success story here with one of my clients out of San Diego, California. And Lois Hughes, she's actually in San Diego, California. She's a full-time aerospace engineer, has a full-time job, has a really high income, and has always wanted to invest in real estate, but she didn't have the time to do it full-time herself, right? But she had investment capital through her 401k, and then also by utilizing her home equity line of credit. And what we did is we were able to actually purchase this house with her home equity line of credit, do the renovation, get it fully furnished, and then help her get the house refinanced after that to pay back her home equity line of credit. And this is a house right here in the city where I live, right here in Deer Park, Texas. And it's a great property. It does really good on Airbnb and brings her that income. And then after that, we were able to help her get another property here in Houston. This is another property in Houston that we actually bought this house subject to, where we took over the payments on the existing loan. And then she was able again to use her home equity line of credit, get it going, and then get her home equity line of credit back out after refinancing it. And so that's basically the strategy, that I'm running. And the solution for me is to locate a great investment property, do the renovation, furnish it, list it on Airbnb. And then if you're ready to exit, or when you're ready to exit, then you can list it for sale as well. And then systemizing and automating that, and then adding, one property at a time. And then you can sell those properties and continue to scale, or investing those into the apartment deals or passive income deals and things like that. And so one of the things that I find the common mistakes that people make, and I've made these mistakes as well, was holding single family houses forever or for too long, right? And not letting go of those investments to cash in on that big capital. Because I found that what we can do is make a lot more money by actually letting go of that property and taking the capital off the table than to make a couple $100s a month on those houses, right? Believing, and a lot of people believe that owning rent houses is passive. As we all know, it's not passive. It's a very active. It might be residual income, but it's not a passive, because we have to manage tenants. We have to manage, the property and the rents and all of those things. And then not trading single family homes into passive investments is another common mistake that I see. And then not having a coach, right? Having coaches is what's really taken me from, where I was to just doing a deal here and a deal there, to actually being able to do as many deals as I want to, especially when you surround yourself with great people that have capital, that want to invest with you, and partnering and doing deals together. Because we can go a lot faster by ourselves, is what they say, but we can go a lot further together, right? And so this is kind of like a step-by-step, like what we would need to do, right? Create tons of cash to invest by flipping houses in any various method, right? Whether you do some wholesales or buy, fix, and flip, or using the Airbnb strategy. Locate off-market properties. And this is key, because most of our deals come from motivated sellers that need to sell, not houses that are on the market, not from wholesalers, but the direct marketing that we do to find sellers who need to sell, where the most important thing in their life at that present moment is to sell that property, right? And like Jane said in the introduction, becoming a transaction engineer, meeting those sellers where they're at to figure out an offer that works for them to help them solve their problem, while at the same time creating an opportunity for us to invest in that deal. And so I love to do the fix and flip to Airbnb, sell it and repeat. And then obviously you can get coaching or do it on your own. And definitely, I think we all highly recommend having a coach and having somebody to bounce those ideas off of, because 1% doubt can kill your ambition and your ability to get things done. And again, I think that some of the common mistakes of not having a coach is taking forever to get started. They don't make money right away. They overpay for houses, and they don't have somebody to bounce their ideas off of, and they get completely overwhelmed and potentially quit. And I like to say, if you could have done it on your own, you would have by now. So I wanted to share this little photo here too. This is me at the LED Live studio there, and that's all. That's what I've got for you guys now. And then I wanted to kind of open up, and hopefully that has triggered some questions and we can do some interaction from there. So I will stop share for now and see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Philip. If anybody has a question, it's a small group, so just unmute yourself and talk to Philip. He, like I said, he's such a wealth of information. He's been doing this a long time and has implemented different strategies. So now's the time to ask your questions.
Yeah, I see some familiar faces here. Ernie Smith and Daniel Brody. I see your name, but I don't see your video.
They're usually on.
Ernie?
Maybe they're not on.
Might be putting the kids to bed.
Do you
Yeah.
mainly invest in Texas?
So I believe that real estate is local, right? So I like to invest wherever you're local at, right? So meaning myself, my personal investments, I like to be able to get to those properties, you know, pretty quick, right? So I like to stay within my local market. And that's a great question too, because a lot of people will ask, hey, the Airbnb strategy, are you looking for properties in vacation destinations? And we do, like we have houses down in Galveston Island, and those houses are a little bit more seasonal, right? So they're like during the summertime, we're 95% booked, but on the off season, we're lucky to get the weekends or the holidays that are sprinkled out throughout those off season months, right? And so what I'm doing, I'm literally investing in houses in the suburbs, not necessarily vacation destinations, right? So these are houses that you would normally want to buy, fix, and flip in your local market by doing that off market, you know, finding motivated sellers off market, houses that aren't listed on the MLS. These are usually sellers that need to sell or want to sell, but they're in a distressed property or a distressed situation, right? Maybe they're going through a divorce or they're going through a pre-foreclosure or probates, right? All these different scenarios. And then we help them to actually sell the house. So I'm doing my marketing looking for the motivated seller first. And then we plug in the Airbnb strategy sort of as our holding method, as opposed to like, hey, I'm going to go just buy houses in this vacation destination, right? So does
So I
that
have
help?
two quick questions, if I might.
Sure.
Okay, the first one is, you say that a lot of your Airbnb are in the suburbs, and so the question related to that is, who are the people who are renting? So who's the typical client for those? And then the second question, are you self-managing, or do you have management companies that manage this short-term rentals? And I guess are they all short-term rentals, or some of them midterm rentals?
Great questions. Thank you for asking, Nicole. So as far as the first question, right? Their house is in the suburbs. I live in Deer Park, which is a industry area, right? We live right on the ship channel. It's a lot of oil and gas industry. So we do get a lot of people that come in for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time, and they're here to work, right? So we get some of that. Believe it or not, we do get in the summertime people that are coming to the Houston area for travel, for vacation. Even though they're coming and staying in the suburbs, they might be visiting sites in Houston and things like that, or they have family in the area. Another good avatar for us has been people that have insurance claims, right? So maybe they're displaced on their home while it's getting repaired during insurance claims, and they'll come and stay at our properties. So it's a lot of various different things like that, you know, and they kind of come from everywhere. And the beauty with Airbnb is that Airbnb is the marketing platform. Like you put the property on Airbnb, as long as it shows well and it's presentable and it's nice and it has the amenities that's required, it's better than a hotel. If you have hotels in the area, that means that there's a demand for people that would want to stay in your property. But Airbnb is the marketing platform, and they, you know, we get bookings from that, right? So and then as far as management, yes, we do self-manage, and I'll share with you guys if you guys want. I've got kind of a list of the 5 different apps that I use. So we use a lot of technology, obviously some apps that we lean on. And then one of the companies that we work with has a team of virtual assistants. So right now we're at 30 listings on Airbnb, and between the apps and then the team that's in the Philippines, there's a 24-hour team that, you know, is messaging our guests and dealing with our guests, and my local team here, boots on the ground. And then we have, I think 13 different cleaning ladies that service all of these houses for us and go in and get the houses turned around in between guests. I think that's 2 of the questions. Was there a third one?
Yeah, how many of those short-term are actually midterm? So are they, if people are coming there for jobs, are most of them less than a month, more than a month? What are you seeing?
Most of mine end up being short term. Sometimes those insurance claims will end up being like weeks or months. Sometimes the jobs turn into weeks or months. But with the pricing strategy that I use, we put in a discount for the longer bookings, right? So we're open to taking midterms, but I'm not advertising just as a midterm. One of the questions that would come up would be like, if you need to pivot to midterm because let's say there's an HOA or the city says you can't do short-term rentals anymore, then you have to do rentals that are 31 days or longer, then you would want to definitely pivot to a midterm strategy utilizing other booking channels, right? So you can set it on Airbnb with a minimum of however many days to make it a midterm, but you're going to get less bookings. Most of our bookings are 7 days or less. But there are websites like Furnished Finder, you know, that cater to the traveling nurses for the midterm longer bookings that you could also advertise on as well.
I thank you.
You're welcome.
So when you underwrite a property that you're looking at, with the idea being, just like you said, you know, what if the municipality changes the rules or whatever it may be? Do you underwrite to the point where, okay, worst case scenario, if I've got to go long term, you know, year to year kind of thing, whatever it is, it carries itself, or, you know, I can't find enough deals that way, I'm going to underwrite at a minimum or short term? Or how do you evaluate whether, or how do you mitigate, I guess, the risk factor? So do you make sure you don't find yourself kind of like New York City, where they like lost all their Airbnb people?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do, right? So the first thing, I'm a real estate investor first, right? So I'm not paying full retail for a turnkey house that's on the market. Like, you know, we're buying off market properties that we can add value, renovate, and build that equity, right? By doing the value add.
Right.
And then for sure, we want to make sure that's the second thing, right? First, we want to buy equity because we get paid when we buy, right?
Right.
We make our money when we buy, we get paid when we sell, but we want to have that equity position first. And then we want to make sure that, hey, worst case scenario, if we have to do a long-term rental, will the long-term rent cover the debt service on the loan? You know what I mean? And so that is the first thing. And then if Airbnb is going to bring extra, that's just icing on the cake, right? But we make our underwriting decision based on the long-term rental can cover it. And again, like, I'm not looking at it to like, okay, well, now I'm going to cash flow $1,000 per month on this house instead of 100 because I'm doing short-term rental. So now I can pay, you know, 90,000 more for this property. No.
Right.
That's, you know, and there are people that have made that mistake, right? And I think a lot of the short-term rental industry has been saturated with people overpaying for houses because now they're buying based on the income potential instead of the real value. And that's where you can definitely get in a bind, right? So buying where, you know, the long-term rental can cover the debt service is a great practice. And then again, like Nicole was saying, like the midterm is kind of a hybrid. It's in between short-term rentals and long-term rentals. It's going to get a little bit less than you would get with short-term rentals, but more than you would get with long-term rentals, when less turnover and less, you know, less maintenance and upkeep, I'm sure. So definitely a strategy to consider if that's what you want to do. And yeah, so for me, like having these houses fully furnished, they're staged. It's not like somebody living there with all of your personal belongings, but the houses for me, they're always in tip-top shape, ready to sell whenever we're ready to. We don't have to wait for a long-term lease to expire before we sell, because if you sell a tenant occupied property, well, the only person that wants to buy that is an investor, and investors want to buy below market, right? So this allows me to sell at the top of the market, and whether it takes 30 days or 90 days to sell, it's okay, because we're generating income the whole time, and we can wait for, you know, a great offer and sell at the top of the market instead of being a motivated seller. So
That's great. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
When you sell them, do you usually sell them on a, like a type of lease option or owner finance, or is it usually just a person buying them traditionally?
So now I've kind of quit doing the owner finance and lease option strategies, right? Because of those stories that we talked about in the presentation. And so now when I'm ready to sell, I'm listing them, on the market and selling them retail. We'll utilize a flat fee listing agent that I know here in town. We just pay him a flat fee up front, and then we offer the 3% to a buyer's agent to get those properties sold. I'm not going to say I'll never do a rent to own or owner finance again, you know what I mean? But I like to just kind of retail them and get out. I'm actually like literally looking at a text message from a lady that was in a property that we bought, and we're going to convert this one to a short-term rental. And we bought it from the husband. They had gotten divorced, and then she quit paying rent to him, and he didn't evict her. So I bought the property subject to, and she's been in there for several years, but it's gotten to the point twice where she's gotten behind, and finally we decided, you know what, we're just going to have to move on, right? And so going through the eviction process, she's moved out, but now her brother's not leaving, right? So it's like,
Oh, Lord.
oh gosh, I've got to literally get the sheriff to do a writ of possession here in about 5 days if he doesn't leave on his own. But the stories are endless. Like, we could write a book about all of the different things that we've experienced, and I'm sure you guys can too.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and not
Yeah.
every Airbnb guest is perfect either, right? We've got some stories that we could share with you on those too. But we love the strategy that we're working, and I feel like we have a lot more control. We're running little hotels out of each one of these houses. I mean, essentially is what it is, right?
And
But
that's pretty cool, because then you get the furniture and you put it into the next one, take the furniture out and put it to the next thing.
yeah, exactly. And so we have a house right now in Texas City. We're scheduled to close on the 28th, right? And so we'll have a moving company there, picking up all of the furniture and taking it straight to a property in Baytown that we just finished, that we're wrapping up the renovation. So we've got like literally 7 days to finish the floors and get everything ready so we can move the furniture straight from that house to this house, and we'll be up and running on Airbnb hopefully, within days, right? So that's when it's exciting. Like when you're literally this pipeline, you're selling a house, all this furniture goes straight to the next house that you just finished, and it's fun. It's a lot of work, it's a heavy lift, but it's rewarding. It's worth it. And we've got, I think, 5 houses under renovation right now, maybe 6, and
Awesome.
all different stages, in this. There's somebody in the waiting room. Do you want me to let him in?
Oh, James?
Darren. Okay, Richard. It looks like I can admit.
Yeah, you could go ahead, and that's fine. You can. Where do you find your leads? Where are your lead sources?
So I do have a group that I coach, right? I coach some wholesalers, essentially, the guys that have more time than money, that have the desire to get into real estate, but maybe they haven't had the experience yet, and they want to just get started with wholesaling. So I do train them on doing the off-market marketing and things like that, and then help them get those properties wholesaled, right? And then a lot of times I'll partner with them or buy them from them. We do a lot of our own marketing. Obviously, we've been in the business for over 20 years here in our local market, so we do get a lot of referrals. I do have an office location, so we have a presence there with signs and things, and a billboard right by my office, right? So we do get a lot of, I would say, a handful of deals a year, that just from having that presence in that office, you know what I mean?
Nice.
So, but it's I would say 95% off market, direct to seller marketing things that we get. Every now and then we're lucky and we'll get one off of a wholesaler, or one off of the MLS, but most of the houses are off market properties.
I guess you have a lot of campaigns going on as well that you outsource.
Yeah, we focus on a lot of different lists, right? I'm sure you guys are familiar with different lists. We do. I like the probates. Probates have been a really good one for us, right? So you've got somebody that's passed away and the family is inheriting the property. And most of the time, the property has not been updated in 20, 30 years. So it makes sense to sell below market as is. And usually, you know, when we're inheriting a property, if one of our parents were to pass away, for example, you know, you've got siblings and we already have our own houses. We don't live in the same city or the same state a lot of times, right? So it makes sense for them to sell below market cash, and then we can buy those houses and fix them up. We do help a lot of people that are in the pre-foreclosure situations, right? And working with sellers who are behind on payments or, you know, close to a foreclosure, and being able to, a lot of our subject twos comes from those, like the behind on payment strategies.
Good stuff.
What's the flavor in Houston right now? I know in Sarasota they're kind of like cracking down on Airbnbs, and they're really trying to kind of shut them down. Is what's going on in Houston? Is that
We're heavily
do you see
regulated.
that? Yeah, they're heavily regulating.
Yeah, Houston doesn't have any regulations. Some of the cities, like even Deer Park, the town that I'm in, they've imposed like the hotel tax, right? So we have to do a quarterly report and pay the hotel taxes. You really want to check with, if you're in an HOA, to make sure that they don't have stipulations against it, which a lot of them do, right? So we try to stay away from HOA properties, but I'll do my strategy, a buy, fix, and flip, and use Airbnb. Even if it's in an HOA, if it's only going to be on Airbnb for 2 or 3, 4 months until the property sells, right? So I'm still okay with doing that on some HOA properties, right? Knowing that, you know, we got enough, we'll get the house sold before they catch on to what we're doing. Right.
Smart.
So then a kind of question, this is Nicole again.
Right.
Are you holding any of these for like a year and a day so that you are not paying, you know, kind of the tax rate that you can get a more capital gains rate? Or are you just selling them when you can sell them and
Yeah.
don't worry about it? And then a follow-up on that is, are you taking them in different entities, or are they all LLC owned?
Great questions. Thank you for asking, Nicole. So you're right. If you own a property for longer, and here's the thing too, and I don't know if this is a nuance, and I'm obviously not an attorney, but I've heard this recently, which I hadn't heard over the 20 years that I've been investing. And we all know that if short-term capital gains, if you buy, fix, and flip in less than 12 months, that's short-term capital gains, which essentially the profit, you're going to get taxed at whatever your income tax bracket is. Right. So if we own a property, is what we all understand, for more than 12 months, that becomes long-term capital gains. But what I'm understanding now is that it's from the date of service, right? So once you actually started renting that property out, not the day you bought it, right? So if you took 3 months to renovate before you put it up to rent, that 12-month clock, now what I believe starts on the date of service, where you actually started renting that property out. So that might be a little bit of a nuance to just check. And see that. But yeah, that's the reason, one of the main reasons I like to hold longer than a year, right, is so that I can do the long-term capital gains. And the other thing too, Nicole, like if we buy a property, we do all of these capital improvements, we renovate the property, we do the new air conditioner, foundation leveling, paint, carpet, flooring, like we've completely renovated this house, and then we're just selling it. But we're not taking advantage of the fact that the house is brand new. Why not hold that property for even longer? Why not hold it for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years before those things start breaking down, and then sell it? Because it's still going to be in great shape. And anytime during that 5-year period, when we're in a good seller's market again, then we can decide to exit, right? So if you've underwritten it right and you've got financing in place that allows you to hold longer term, I think the result will be better, right? You can take advantage of the depreciation that you get to write off during those few years, the appreciation, the principal pay down, the tax advantages, and then you get to sell the property, you know, 3 or 4 years down the road before those major things, you know, kind of start needing some maintenance and upkeep. So I think it's
So if you're holding it for longer than a year, and once you get a rental in, are you doing any cost seg studies on those single families if you're putting a lot of money into them to benefit your taxes even more? And how do you do that if you do?
Personally, I have not, but Lois did. She did the cost segregation studies so she could get those write-offs, because her plan is to hold those properties for 5 to 10 years. But personally, I have not done that. So that's definitely something, you know, to look into if you need those write-offs. And then you did have another question, I think, before I went off on the long-term capital gains. Anybody remember Nicole's second question?
Yeah, I think you probably already answered it, which was basically if, because you are holding them for a longer term. So you're taking them in LLCs and not S corps and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah, the corporations. There you go. Perfect. And I do. I have several different entities, and I think we've all been probably trained on that, right? To have a separate entity for your short-term flips. And I do. I'll still do some wholesale deals. I'll still do some buy, fix, and flips in that 6-month period, like a lot of us do. And I'll do those in my flipping entity. And then I have a holding entity where I hold the properties long term. I also have a property management company, to manage our long-term rentals. And then I have another property management company to manage our short-term rentals, right? So tenants are renting from a property management company that owns absolutely nothing. And the same thing with our Airbnbs, right? That's a different property management company for that. But I don't know that you need to have all of those things in place. You guys might advise a little bit different, but that's how I've been coached, and that's how I've been running mine. So like it.
Guys, any other questions? Doug? Tonight.
No,
Okay.
tonight I'm pretty quiet tonight. I did have a question on, let's say, on short-term rentals. You said you're mainly staying in the Texas area, close to home, keeping yours close to home.
Yeah, and I do have, clients that I work with, right? So I'll partner with student partners in their local market if they want to, but most of my personal investments that I'm managing myself are going to be right here. And you can manage short-term rentals remotely as long as you have boots on the ground, right? You need a good cleaning team, a good maintenance guy. And then most everything else is done remotely anyway, right? So we did have, when we first got started, we thought, oh, this is so cool. We're going to have properties and all these different vacation destinations so we can go use these houses. And we had a couple of properties in Lake Tahoe. And after 2 years of doing those properties, we realized, wow, 2 years, we've been there once.
Yeah.
So the dream of like, oh, let's go vacation over here, it just wasn't realistic, right? So personally, I like to stay close to home. We're literally 20-30 minutes from 30 listings, and like the furthest ones we have right now are Galveston and Crystal Beach, right? Those are like an hour and a half depending on which one we go to, but most of our stuff is right here, local, close to home, where we can be there pretty quick.
Are there certain sizes that are optimal, like 3.3, 3.2, or does that really depend on the location and if you're in a vacation destination versus a neighborhood?
Yeah, it does. And I think you got to look at it based on an ROI perspective, right? Like what's the value of the house and how much income is it going to bring? A 3-bedroom, 2-bath is going to do better than a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, right? And so a 4-bedroom is going to do better than a 3-bedroom. But then like we have one house in Baytown, it's actually a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and it has a detached garage. And we converted that detached garage into a little studio. And we closed in the breezeway in between them and put the laundry room there. So it's the house shares the breezeway laundry room, and then there's the studio apartment right next to it. And believe it or not, that studio, it does 25 to 30,000 a year, and it probably costs 20,000 to get it renovated as a little Airbnb, right? So it literally almost doubled the income of that property by doing that, right? So sometimes the smaller ones, because they're cheaper per night, and it's just 1 or 2 people at a time that are going to come and stay in that one, is more affordable than a whole 3-bedroom house, right? So you'll get some pretty good bookings there. So and then the vacation destinations, like our beach house that we started with in 2017 is in Crystal Beach, and it's a 5-bedroom house, sleeps I think 13 people, right? And so when we first came on the market, that house was doing really good compared to other properties in the area because it was a bigger property, sleeps more people. So
Cool. I was wanting to do kind of one goal is to do some A-frames. But I was thinking of Gatlinburg, but I know it's kind of pricey right now, so I don't know.
Yeah, definitely worth looking into. I've heard a lot of good things about Gatlinburg being a great market, you know.
Yeah.
Guess that house that you added a extra unit will sell to an end buyer for more because then they could have
Yeah,
revenue, but they can live into one side and get revenue on the other side, or
yeah,
for
yeah. And
parents, or
the other thing too, like there might be some houses that I'll end up just holding. Like it's cash flowing so
Mhm.
good. You know what I mean? Why would I sell it? I'd rather just kind of keep it. Like, hey, if I can flip the house and make 50,000, but if it's cash flowing 20,000 a year, I might just keep it instead of cashing out. Right. And that has become one of those. It's like, wow, okay. And so now ideally looking for spaces like that have an extra space that you can rent separately. Houses with swimming pools or hot tubs, things like that will definitely increase your bookings, right? So if you got a hot tub and the houses comparable to yours don't, you might get more bookings from that, right? And so that also gives us the opportunity while we're in that holding period to say, we might cherry pick some of these and hold on to them long term, right? We'll sell every property. We don't have to, but we'll sell any of them. But if the ROI is really good, and I'll make that decision based on, hey, what's my ROI based on my equity position, right? If I've got 50,000 equity and it's only bringing 5,000 per year, that's a 10% return. Maybe I will take that 50,000 off and move it into the next investment. But like on this one, if it's bringing 25,000 a year in cash flow and there's only 50,000 equity, I might just keep that. That's a, 40
run,
ROI. So
it's a home run, yeah. Do investors buy some of your homes, or is it mostly homeowners?
in the vacation destinations, like if I were to sell one of our Galveston properties, most likely it would be an investor, right? Because those are kind of like vacation destinations, second homes. Our houses here in the suburbs, they're typically owner occupants that are buying those.
Makes sense.
If you could, we have a wide verse here. If you could give one, do not do, what would that be? If somebody was just gonna say, hey, I just wanted to jump into Airbnbs and don't know much, what's one tip of not to do or to do?
Wow. One tip not to do. I would say don't go against the what what James was asking earlier, right? Don't just
Right,
buy a
underwriting.
property based on the extra income that you think you're going to make on Airbnb and overpay for a property based on that, or going into an HOA. If your plan is to do Airbnb and the only way the cash flow is going to work is with Airbnb income and it's in an HOA, you're likely to get shut down. You know what I mean? So I would definitely stay away from that. Um, but yeah, like you gotta remember we're real estate investors first. We need to buy a property below market value, up front. Don't overpay for a house just to be a motivated buyer, because then you're gonna end up being a motivated seller in the end.
Right. And that's one thing we've seen with Airbnbs. We've seen two things. I know a lot of people were doing the Burr method, but they were basing it basically on the short-term rental, and then they were, again, had 7, 8, 9, 10 houses, and then was like, oops, we're not quite getting that income. That was one thing. And then the HOAs, definitely somebody that totally rehabbed the house, kind of knew the HOA didn't really like it, thought they could get away with it, and then they were that motivated seller that they had to get rid of the house. It just didn't make sense, and they owed a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
So two definites.
Yeah, and then too, like, interest rates changed. So the Burr method
Mhm.
was working great until interest rates went up, right? And now it's gotten a
Yes.
little bit tighter.
Absolutely.
I had an off market or an off topic question. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Sure,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I've got a lot up here that we got a bunch of vacant lots and I was going to sell one of them and a builder called. I put on the listing that I'd do it on terms potentially. How's a way how can I protect myself and how would I structure that to sell it to? It's a wholesaler that wants to buy it and sell it to a flipper, a builder. And I'm in touch with both of them. They're real open about what they're doing and everything. Anybody have suggestions how I protect myself? how to structure that.
So protect yourself from the wholesaler, from the end buyer, or
It's a builder, and in this market, if everything goes right, you know, and they'll make money and I'll get paid when they sell the house. I was thinking on doing terms on, you know, say 1 to 2 years. It's usually they'll build between 1 and 2 years. Sales may take a little longer. I would have to figure out what they're going to build. But so if everything went bad and they couldn't sell and they overbuilt and got it, you know, et cetera, how do I protect myself and make sure I'm not losing? I get all the money I need out of my lot.
So you're basically putting up your lot as the, and they're not paying you anything. Are they giving you anything down to begin with?
Well, we haven't talked about any of that yet. I just said I would consider terms, so I've got to figure out what those terms would be. I would think I would get something down, maybe lease it to them. I don't know what their construction lender is going to do, if they'll take a second position. I'd rather be in first position, and then I feel like I'd be a lot safer. But
Can you do something like a master lease or a land lease?
potentially, and as long as their construction lender is going to be okay with that.
Because then that's the way that you control the land still without giving up all your rights to it,
Right.
I would think.
And then I get it back. You know, if they don't finish or something goes wrong, I've got the land and the house. You know.
Yeah, you could sell it to them on an owner finance deal or a something on that order, and be okay with being in a second position. As long as you had some kind of an agreement that you were going to make sure that you were filing a kind of a mortgage to secure your option, or to secure your loan there. And then you make it clear in your contract that if it doesn't sell, I'm making this up because I don't know your market, but if it doesn't sell, if it isn't completely built within 2 years and sold within 3 years, that you have the right to step into that loan and pay off the mortgage.
Okay.
So that you can then do something else with it. You have a right to foreclose. You have some kind of rights that are going to secure. So I would make sure I was doing this from 2 or 3 places to make sure that I was protected, and something, you know, non-refundable down.
Okay.
If they haven't built in a certain amount of time, that maybe you get a second payment. That you are, if you're in second position, that you make sure your contract says you have the right to foreclose if these things are not completely built by sold by or you have the option to buy it at a certain point. So if certain things are not met, and I would make sure that I put in the option price that I would want to buy it at. So those are things that come to my mind. Those of you others who've done other things and other creative things, what would you add or delete from what I said? I'd be interested in hearing.
I got a, what's the purpose of the wholesaler? If you have the end user, which is the builder, why is there a third party between you and the builder?
I'm an agent and a builder also, and we built the house next door, and I just put it on the MLS. I put, we'll consider terms. And somebody called me the other day and said, hey, we're flippers, wholesalers, whatever. And, you know, we've got a builder we're working with and he's interested in it. So I guess they're going to get a cut. They're the ones that found the lot. Other than that.
Yeah, they're bringing the connection.
Right.
They want a fee for it.
But why not put that on the builder, not you?
Explain what you mean. Sorry.
So let the builder pay that fee, not you as the seller.
That's a good idea.
Right? Because the builder's the one, you know, you're making, you know, your nut off the lot, right? Which shouldn't be as big as the build itself. Right? So make the builder pay that.
Yeah.
Because it's his.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
I was done. Go ahead.
Well, I guess because that's his guy that's out looking for his deals for him. So it should be Like he's the bird dog in that situation, that wholesaler.
But I like that idea of the wholesaler doesn't get their money till the thing sells.
Just like the realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it
he
doesn't have
shouldn't
to-
get it. He should get the money from the build,
Correct.
not the lot, because it seems to me like the builder's got him out looking for dirt, and if the builder's the one sending him around looking for dirt, I would like if it was coming out of my pocket. Right? You didn't hire him to sell the lot. The builder hired him to find the lot.
Right.
Well, isn't that who generally pays the wholesale fee? The person who is going to buy the deal or who's going to step into the deal, not the seller?
No,
Yeah,
because
Go ahead.
they're all different, but like just in a real estate transaction, he usually is the one that pays on paper. It's the seller. The seller has the option of paying the buyer's agent if that's the case, or how much, but typically it's on the seller side.
Yeah. Typically, if this was a sale and that was a realtor, not a wholesaler, and they had the builder coming in, I as the seller would be paying both sides of the commission. I'd be paying, well, and I don't charge because I'm my own realtor and it's my company and everything, but so I would pay usually around 3% to whoever found the buyer's agent. So
Yeah, but in this case, it sounds like the builder has a bird dog, like Ernie was saying, or a wholesaler out helping him find lots, and then the guy's just putting himself in the middle of a transaction where, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to pay him. I would say, well, the builder's going to pay you because he's the one that hired you to find the property. This
and I
isn't
think
a
that's
real.
the case. Yeah, I think that's the case. I think we haven't talked about any fees or anything. So I'm assuming that the builder is going to they found it and they'll work out their arrangement, whatever the builder may be paying, a little bit more.
Yeah, but on this stuff, are they having you wait for your payments or any payments until the end when they go to sell this thing?
Well, that's the deal. That's the structure we have to work out. But yes, it would probably be so much down and either so much a month or we just hold it till the end. And I'd rather get some kind of progress payments just to make sure.
Here's an idea.
But I would shrink the time on that too, though.
Well,
Sorry.
even if you don't wait till the end, here's what you can try and do. You take a certain percentage down to hold it. And then when he gets to construction loan, get the construction loan to buy out the lot.
Yep.
Because the construction loan, they won't give him the loan unless they're first lien. So if he gets enough construction loan, they'll buy the lot at the first closing. Right?
Yeah.
So
I suspect that's actually where the issue may be, is that it's a relatively new builder, or the builder is kind of scarce, and so he's trying to decrease the amount of costs that he's having to get loans on, and that's why he wants the owner of the lot to hold, for all intents and purposes, hold the financing until the house gets ready to sell. And that's really a sweet deal for the builder. So
yeah, it's a really
I would
sweet deal.
be, upping my cost of my lot by a little bit to take that risk.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know if those construction, especially if I remember correctly, you're up in the $2 million price point, right?
Well, I am on the house next door. I don't know what they're going to do. I've talked to a lot of builders lately trying to figure out what we need to do.
But it's over $1 million, right?
Probably, yeah.
And most of those construction people, those construction lenders they're gonna want first lien position, and they're not gonna want anybody attached to the dirt, because when they take it over, they got to buy you out to sell it.
Yeah.
He's gonna have a very hard time getting a loan without, the dirt, or because if he buys the dirt outright, he can use that as his down payment / collateral for the loan. If he doesn't own the dirt, he's got to come up with the cash.
Right.
Yeah, but then he could also have Doug in there as a partner.
Hey, I want to know the answer to every real estate question ever asked.
Yeah.
It depends.
Depends. It depends. Right, Doug, you've got a property that you're willing to sell with terms. You come up with your terms that you're willing to accept and give that to that wholesaler. he's going to make his fee by marking it up, right? Hey, here's what I'm willing to accept. Here's what you can take that to market and see if you can bring it to us. You know what I mean? And then all of those other details will get lined out, right, based on the negotiations with that builder guy, you know.
Yeah,
But
and I
great
don't mind.
points. I completely agree with Daniel and Ernie for sure. You know, like there's a lot to uncover here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all
I don't mind
depends.
taking a little bit of risk as long as I'm getting paid for it. You know, like if the lot hasn't sold right now at the price it's at. So, you know, that says one thing. But if they're wanting me to take some risk, I need to get paid for the risk, you know.
Right, and you're going to have a security instrument, right? Note and deed of trust against the property, and you're going to be just fine, right? Once you outline the details of the deal, then you can get help from your real estate attorney to get it all written up. And
Yeah. All right. Thanks for giving me that leeway. Sorry, I didn't mean to take up a bunch of time.
No, it's all good. All good. No, it was great.
Love it.
We love it. That's
Yeah.
what we're here for, to all work things out and learn and grow from each other. That's
Very
worst
good.
comes to worst, you get a nice big fat house for the price of the lot.
I'm more worried about the getting nothing
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
and giving away my lot.
No. Yeah, no doubt.
But you'll be in a position, so you'll
Yeah.
have it recorded and all that, so you'll be good to-
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're about 8:30. I think there's some links in the meeting chat for YouTube and where you can go on the website. And Philip, again, thanks for giving us a Airbnb tutorial, and
Welcome.
appreciate you being here.
You want me to share some links that I talked about earlier? Because I do
Yeah,
have.
absolutely. Throw them in the
You do.
or-
You want me to put them in the chat or just open my screen?
Yeah,
and share the
yeah,
screen.
you can
Whatever's easier.
throw them in the chat if you can.
Whatever's easier.
Okay, cool.
And
So
you
I'll
can probably open your screen too, Candy, if he wants to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
sure.
Okay, sure. Let me hear. I'll put here in the chat. These are the 5 apps that I use. So you can kind of download there. Let me share my screen. And then you can do if y'all prefer to do the QR code thing. And then, so that's the 5 apps needed to automate your short-term rentals. And then the Think Big book, if you guys want a free digital copy of the Think Big book, you can get that right here, which has a lot of other successful real estate entrepreneurs stories and things like that as well. So let me see. Now I don't have the chat. So how do I put this in the chat? Here it is. Boom.
And if anybody needs this, we can certainly get a hold of Philip for you, or we can get you the links. Probably should be on.
Yeah, or again at my website, right? phillipwarrick.com. And then
Yep.
social media, right? Phillip Warrick on all the different social medias. Facebook is where I'm most active, Facebook and Instagram and all that good stuff. So
Yep. And he's always good to follow on either of those. Lots of good stuff.
yeah.
Lots of
And then-
good videos.
So, and then there right here, if anybody wants to just kind of have a conversation and maybe apply for some coaching, rather that short-term rentals, long-term rental, like I can coach on anything, right? And just kind of customize a plan for anybody that does want to kind of engage on something like that. You can fill out that application, and at the end of the application, there'll be a link to book a 15-minute call with me so that we can kind of do a deeper dive into what your goals are. And you know, there's a million different strategies in real estate, and I believe everybody's you know, depending on where they're at, help meet you where you're at and figure out a roadmap to get you to that success that you want to achieve in real estate, because everybody's end goal might be a little bit different, right? But having somebody to coach you along the way, to hold you accountable, to have somebody to bounce ideas off of and stuff like that is paramount to your success. So there we go.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for being here again. Thanks, Philip, and we'll see y'all next week at the same time.
And next week, we're going to go over
Yeah, pitch a deal, bring
pitching
a deal.
bringing a deal, and we'll dissect it and see what we can do to create a
Awesome.
good deal and make the most out of it, make the most money.
All right, guys. Thanks again for having me.